Ontario Premier Doug Ford, along with Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston, are in Washington today. They've been networking at a gathering of state governors. It's an opportunity to push back against Donald Trump's threat to impose tariffs against Canada. The premiers are looking both to educate and shore up allies.
Shocking to me is how misinformed a lot of elected officials down here, how critical Canada plays in their economy and their critical minerals and their energy in manufacturing, aluminum and nickel and potash and uranium. So when we tell them all this, they're like, wow, we didn't realize this.
There's a lot of respect for the relationship, but there's also the president is the president, so there's some of that as well. But we just continue to push the message that we want to work together, we support each other in business and just in so many different ways. We also share concerns around the border. We share concern. Nobody wants fentanyl in our community, so we have a lot that we share, and we're just kind of reminding people that we're in this together.
The CBC's Katie Simpson is at the same event in Washington. As she tells us, while Americans may sympathize with Canada, few seem willing to cross Donald Trump.
This is the second trip to Washington for both of these premiers inside of a month. And my question that we spoke with Doug Ford earlier today, the Ontario premier, to sort of get a sense, okay, what has changed? What are you doing this time that you couldn't do last time? What's the point here? And he and Premier Tim Houston just keep saying it's about making those people-to-people connections. It's informing people who are in positions of influence and power and getting the Canadian message to them, talking about the impact that tariffs will have on whether it's their state, whether it's their company, whoever the official is that they're speaking to. So this in Washington, D.C., every year there's a gathering of, it's the National Governors Association. So governors from across the country, they come on down and they hold a whole bunch of meetings. And so it's not unusual for Canadians, whether it's, the Canadian ambassador, I saw Kirsten Hillman here earlier today, Canadian officials to sort of take in some of these meetings, go to some of the presentations and really try to work the room, especially in this moment of great tension between Canada and the United States and this tariff threat. But we spent much of the day talking to American governors as well. And so far what we've found when it comes to the tariff question, there is a bit of a divide down partisan lines. Some Republicans are open to the idea of tariffs because they do support the Trump administration. But on the Democratic governors we've spoken to, there really is an opposition there. Have a listen. We've got a couple of governors that we spoke with earlier. Have a listen.
We farm all the way to the border in North Dakota. We have great relationships with our friends in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And if those issues start causing problems with the North Dakota economy, we'll let the White House know.
And so what does it look like? How do you let the White House know?
We call them and talk to them.
It's very important to me as the governor of Kentucky, first to push back against tariffs that'll harm both of our countries, but specifically my people, but also to message to the Canadian people that this is not who we are. This might be the approach of one president, but we're much bigger than a president in this country.
Now, one thing that has also come up quite a bit is the 51st state issue, how Donald Trump keeps pushing that. And at first it started as a joke, and then perhaps Canadians certainly aren't taking it a joke at this point in time. It's become very much a hostile statement. And given the economic threats, it's really considered a deeply hostile state. We spoke with the Democratic governor of Connecticut, Ned Lamont. We spoke to him really briefly here, and we asked him about tariffs, but it seems that he sort of thinks that it's an idea down here in the United States among some of the governors, even though he's a Democrat, that Canada is a punchline. Have a listen.
I like Canada. It's my favorite 51st state. And we bring down, that's a joke, by the way.
I know, the thing is in Canada, that's not going to go over as a joke.
Okay, leave that outside. But we bring down hydro, we bring down energy. The idea of putting a 20% tariff on that is terrible for our region. It's not the right way for the president to go.
This is going to sound like a weird thing, but when he said that thing about the 51st state, my face kind of went stunned. When you're a journalist, you sort of don't make faces when people say things to you. You just, you listen. But I was not expecting him to make a 51st state joke. And it sort of speaks to how, Donald Trump will be making those statements and talking about it. And Canada, it's seen really, really hostile. And then sometimes in the United States, it's picked up sort of as a joke. And Canada is in a way sort of seen as a punchline, even though that governor is very against tariff, thinks it would be very deeply harmful to the economy of Connecticut, would be bad for energy prices, would be bad for jobs. So really, it's just, if you want a sort of an idea of what it's sort of like in D.C. in this moment. And that 51st state thing, it sort of hits as a punchline in a way that I don't think Canadians are really going to enjoy.
The CBC's Katie Simpson in Washington.